Happy morning, students. How are you all? Welcome to your geography class. So now let's move to our next topics. Again, the different ways of representing our Earth. The tools which we have already covered were maps, globes, sketches, and plans. Today we will talk about aerial photographs, satellite pictures, and various diagrams. So let's start. Yes, another tool for representing the Earth or a part of it is aerial photography. Photographs of Earth are taken from a camera mounted on an aircraft, an unmanned drone, or an artificial satellite. In fact, such photographs have been used widely in the preparation of accurate maps. Now let's do one by one. What are aerial photographs? Aerial photography means photography from the air. Look here. Aerial photography is one of the most common, versatile, and economic forms of remote sensing. Aerial photography was the first method of remote sensing and even used today in the era of satellite and electronic scanners. Aerial photographs will still remain the most widely used type of remote sensing data. You know, earlier, aerial photographs were taken from balloons and kites as early in 1800. So, this aerial photography is one of the earliest forms of remote sensing and is still one of the most widely used and cost-effective methods of remote sensing. Before the development of multispectral sensors and computers, people were using traditional photography to capture aerial images. Since it started, aerial photography has gone from balloons and kites to aeroplanes, satellites, and now unmanned aircraft system. While the quality, resolution, and platforms have evolved, aerial photography is still a cornerstone of remote sensing and is becoming cheaper and more accessible than ever. It is still a better choice for most business and personal commercial uses than satellite imagery. We will talk of satellite imagery after this. Aerial photography costs less, and in some cases it is more up to date, as many available satellite maps are more than a year old and don't necessarily reflect recent changes or developments. So what the small companies and individuals do, they can more easily hire an aerial photographer or have more input in the process. Here the resolution and clarity is likely to be higher as well, making images easier to understand and often eliminating the need for special analysis. So, in simple words, we can say aerial photography is the taking of photographs from an aircraft or other flying objects. But how do we do it? There are different platforms for aerial photography, which are aircrafts, helicopters, unmanned aerial vehicles, unmanned means without a person, balloons, rockets, pigeons, kites, parachutes, etc. So this is one aerial view. Now next is satellite pictures. Now what are satellite pictures? These are images of Earth or other planets. So here you can make out one difference. When we talked of aerial photography, it covers a smaller area as compared to satellite pictures. Clear? So here you can cover the whole Earth or other planets. So the images of Earth or other planets collected by imaging satellites operated by the government and businesses around the world. Now look here, this is a satellite picture of our Earth. You can easily see North America, South America. Okay, and this is the, yes, it is an isthmus of Panama. Okay, joining both. These are satellite imagery. You can see they are taking images from different parts of the Earth. So satellites are becoming real-time spies in the sky. Yes, do you agree? So this is a satellite picture of Gujarat. Now let's talk about how aerial photographs are different from satellite pictures. Now aerial photographs, they cover a small area, normally a few square kilometers to a few hundred square kilometers. Such photographs are taken from an altitude of a few hundred meters to 1,000 meters. Then snapshots are taken by camera and photographic film. Very high degree of details regarding the terrain may be obtained. Now, what is terrain? The area. Okay. Aerial surveys lack fixed repetitions and are highly expensive. Surveys are adversely affected by bad weather. So there are some pros and cons, okay, positive and negative aspect of aerial photography. Now let's talk of satellite imagery. Satellite imagery covers a very large area which ranges from 3,500 square kilometer to above 30,000 square kilometer. See, it covers a very large area as compared to aerial photographs. Such images are taken from 600 to 900 kilometers. Satellite surveys are highly repetitive. Details are fewer in comparison to aerial photographs, obviously, because here they're covering a vast area and aerial photographs, they cover a small area as compared to satellite images. Here, the images are taken digitally, which can be further improved or enhanced. Okay, we are talking of satellite images. So these satellite images, they have number of their own advantages. They can be used to track weather systems, especially dangerous storms like hurricanes, with great accuracy. Satellites circle the Earth, so their imaging activity can be repeated easily. It also allows for much greater areas of coverage, as I told you. And because all information is digital, it can be easily integrated with software. In some cases, cloud cover does not affect result. So both have their own advantages and disadvantages. Satellite imagery and aerial photography both provide a view of the Earth from above, and both are used to study geography, to survey areas of land, and even to spy on governments. The method of creating images differ between the two techniques, as does the application of such images most of the time. While both processes can produce digital images, satellite images have greater large-scale scientific applications, and aerial photography has greater small-scale commercial application. So we can say aerial photography is still a better choice for most business and personal commercial uses than satellite imagery. Aerial photography costs less, and in some cases it is more up to date, as many available satellite maps are more than a year old and don't necessarily reflect recent changes or developments. But if we talk about satellite images, they are one of the most powerful and important tools used by the meteorologist. Who are meteorologists? Who study about weather forecasting. They are essentially the eyes in the sky. These images reassure forecasters to the behavior of the atmosphere as they give a clear, concise, and accurate representation of how events are unfolding. So here we have covered aerial photographs and satellite pictures. So let's move to our next topic, that is representation of geographical features through diagrams. So the first diagram here is this one. What does this remind you of? Yes. Can you see up folds, down folds? Okay, here also. Yes. And these are the fold mountains. Okay, so how fold mountains are formed? Fold mountains are formed when two tectonic plates, okay, one from this side, the other from the other side, move towards each other, leading to the folding of the layers of the earth. The upfolds are called anticlines. Can you see A written here? And the downfolds are called synclines. You know, we have covered various examples of fold mountains: Himalayas in Asia, Andes Mountain in South America, Alp Mountains in Europe. So those are fold mountains. Okay, they are in the form of different ranges. So you can see a compression occurring here. Okay, that is between two tectonic plates which are moving towards each other. So the most basic types of folds are anticlines and synclines. Imagine a rug, the sides of which have been pushed towards each other, forming ridges and valleys. The ridges are upfolds and the valleys are downfolds. In terms of geological structures, the upfolds are called anticlines and the downfolds are called synclines. So, anticlines and synclines are the upfolds and downfolds that usually occur together and are caused by compression. Okay, where? In the fold mountains. Now, let's recall this diagram. Can you see two faults here? Yes, the deep cracks. And remember these two terms, Graben and Horst. Which mountains we are talking about? Block mountains, correct. So what happens here? How block mountains are formed? So what happens here? A fault or fracture of the Earth's crust is caused by strain or tension. This results in the displacement of the surface. You can see this part, okay, it is sinking down, okay, and this part remains raised. When cracks or faults occur in the Earth's crust and the surface between the cracks sinks, it leaves upstanding blocks on either side. These are called block mountains. Remember, block mountains are called Horst, and the valley which is formed in between, mainly the Rift Valley, it is known as Graben. Clear? So this diagram, it shows how block mountains are formed. So block mountains are formed when two tectonic plates move away from each other, causing cracks on the surface of the Earth. Now let's move to our next diagram. What does this diagram show? Yes, it shows the river system. A river system is a number of rivers which consist of one main river which drains into a lake or into the ocean and all its tributaries. The source is from where the water is coming. For example, it can be a spring water or it can be a mountain. The water consistently flows and dumps the water into the ocean after it reaches its end. The water always comes from a high to low, emptying into the river, which is called the mouth of the river. So it shows the whole journey of the river. So where do all the rivers emerge from and where do they end? Have you ever thought of that? So let's talk about all the parts of the river, okay, and its journey, okay, one by one. So a river system is a number of rivers which consist of a main river which drains into lake or into the ocean and its tributaries. What is a river? A river is a natural flowing water course, usually fresh water flowing towards an ocean, sea or another river. Now first we will talk of tributaries and distributaries. A tributary is a stream of river that flows into a large river. Can you see these small rivers? They are joining to a main river. When a number of small rivers join the main river, we call those as tributaries. It may originate from glaciers, lakes, springs. Generally, it doesn't change its course. Tributaries add water to the main river. For example, Ganga. Okay, what is the tributary of Ganga? Yamuna. Yamuna is the tributary of Ganga. The opposite of tributary is a distributary. Distributaries where rivers branch off to smaller streams, and probably the most familiar features of deltas. Now, what is a distributary? When the main river breaks up into smaller streams, we get distributaries. It is formed from the main river. Tributaries lead to the main river, and distributaries, they come out of the main river. From the main river, you can say. It diverges from the main river in the delta region, okay, where at the mouth of the river. It takes away water from the main river. They are numerous and do not have names. So a tributary is a freshwater stream that feeds into a larger stream or river. The larger or parent river is called the main stream. The point where the tributaries meet the main stream is called the confluence. Tributaries, also called affluents, do not flow directly into the ocean. Okay, their role is only till here. Now, what is a distributary? A distributary, or we can say distributary channel, is a stream that branches off, you can say in the form of branches, and flows away from the mainstream channel. Distributaries are a common feature of river deltas. The phenomenon is known as river bifurcation. The opposite of distributary is tributary. You can see both are totally different in their nature. Okay, here small tributaries, they are joining to the mainstream, and here again mainstream, that is the main parent river, it is again dividing into different distributaries. Now, apart from these, we have one more typical landform found in the stage of a river called meanders. Look at this diagram. Can you see a river? Yes. So meander is a winding curve or bend in a river. They are typical of the middle and lower courses of a river. Meanders form a snake-like pattern as the river flows across a fairly flat valley floor. The position of the curve changes over time. A river rarely flows in a straight line. It will bend around something in its course, for example, a tree or a hard rock. This results in areas of slower and faster water movements. So meander is a winding curve or bend in a river. Meanders are the result of both erosional and depositional processes. Okay, so let's come to the next, that is delta. The delta is an area of land at the mouth of a river formed by the deposition of sediments carried by rivers. So how the delta is formed? As the sediments build up, the mouth will be blocked. Can you see here? Yes. The rivers also split into several small channels called distributaries to flow to the sea. Yes, look here. This is the main river. Okay, it is giving rise to many branches which we call as distributaries. So this river water heavily laden with silt from upper reaches of valley. Then because This area is flat, low. Here what happens? Deposition of silt fills in seas or lakes to form delta. So you can see the formation of deltas here. So we have examples of delta as Ganga Brahmaputra Delta. You must be knowing it is the largest river delta in the world. It is also known as Sundarbans Delta. See here, this is Ganga river and this is Brahmaputra river. Both of them, okay, they form a largest delta in the world, and this water is pouring into Bay of Bengal. Another one is Nile Delta. Yes, so the Lake Victoria is the source of this Nile River. It is the longest river, and then it forms the delta and opens its mouth into the Mediterranean Sea. Yeah. So here we have covered all the diagrams which represent different geographical features of the Earth. I hope I'm clear with you. Okay. Thank you everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.